Hello.
Hi,
We are in we're in Lima,
Lima, Peru.
Lima, Peru. The last country of our stops. We got here yesterday morning around 8 a.m. And came from Chile. So, what we do in Chile, David?
In Chile, we took kind of like a little R&R in between documentaries. We went to Santiago and we went to Valparaiso, and Valparaiso was a really standout city for me.
We really didn't do any quintessentially tourist things in Valpo. We just kind of got lost in the city, and it was really like I think that's how you have to do it there.
Yeah, Valpo was really incredible. It was one of the most like immediately impressive cities I've ever been to. Um, it it's a port city, but it's built into like a hillside, so it has like this gravity, and these streets that just like wind up the mountain. Like driving there was insane.
Yeah.
And all the houses, all the buildings are kind of like in the pastel range,
Yeah.
and they're just covered in street art. Like every single building has graffiti on it, and it was the whole city was like a museum. It was like
Yeah.
walking through a big museum.
But we should rewind a little bit and just talk about kind of where we finished off. We had some great last day shooting in Buenos Aires. For me, the highlight was definitely when Radio La Colifata transmitted from outside the hospital one day. It was the last Saturday we were there. Actually, they took all the patients that were allowed to leave the hospital that day, and the volunteers that normally help out the Colifata all went in cars to La Boca, and we set up in this kind of like amphitheater-esque spot, and you had passerbys, like people stopping through the park on a regular walk, just like being like, oh, what's this? And then like having that moment where it's like, oh, it's this radio show of patients from El Borda, like, and everyone knows El Borda in Buenos Aires. They're like, oh, El Borda, like, scary. But then like to see them sit and watch and participate in the radio and really break down the thought that they maybe had of what a psychiatric patient inside El Borda was like, or like, kind of break down their stigma or whatever it was. That was really cool. And kind of the whole point we got involved in radio as like a fascinating therapeutic form was this like interchange between not just the participant within the hospital, but the listener outside the hospital, through voice. And today, or that day on Saturday, it wasn't just through voice, but it was actually like the patients themselves leaving and interacting.
I think we're really used to trying to convince crazy people to not be crazy. Like if a schizophrenic person says like, there are spiders everywhere, we'll be like, listen, there aren't spiders everywhere. But like the thought behind how they were treating people who had a different sense of reality was entirely different than that at La Colifata. Was really kind of trying to engage with that reality and give value to that reality rather than try to tell people that they're wrong. And I saw how rewarding and useful that was for both the patients and the caregivers.
So to see how to deal with these, not how to deal with, but just how to engage with these patients, like really taught me a lot. And I think it stems farther than schizophrenia or like deliriums. Like it just has to go with perception in general, and kind of like how we understand people who perceive things differently than we do. It shouldn't start ever with like, you're wrong, let me tell you how I'm right. It should really be more an engagement of, all right, let me step in your shoes, let me see your world for a second, and let me figure out how that works with mine.
The umbrella of this project when we agreed to do it was very much how do we treat mental health, and are there other ways to do it? So we really got to do like a deep dive into radio and into verbalization generally with La Colifata, and that was really amazing, a really unique experience. And now we're looking into indigenous medicines, and that's very much what this second leg is going to be. Yeah, so I think that's a good segue.
Yeah.
Bish, what's our next documentary about?
Yeah, so we're switching gears now. We go to Pucallpa in 3 days, where we're going to film a man by the name of Pedro Favaron. Pedro is a professor of literature. He's a poet. He's a novelist, but his true passion is natural traditional medicine, specifically ayahuasca, but also kind of a whole breadth of the plant kingdom in the Amazon. He actually married into an indigenous community known as the Shipibo Konibo community. So we're going to go there for just short of 2 weeks to spend time with him and his family. We'll live in his house and film as much of his life as possible. And actually tomorrow we start with an interview of an ex-patient of Pedro's. So it's mainly going to be a story about this man who I spent 5 days with last summer and really just found fascinating on all accounts. And then there will be the emphasis on the plant medicine, ayahuasca, which has gotten a ton of kind of Western craze about it in the past 15 years, more 20 years, since the 90s, will definitely be like an important secondary element of the film. But I think it's going to be really like a really personal character study of Pedro.
Just as far as shooting the documentary goes, Kooky Radio, the one we just shot in Argentina, was very much a multi-subject documentary. Like, we shot 15 plus interviews. When we were shooting at the radio show, we were shooting over 10 or 20 subjects every time we were shooting. So the focus was like the entire thing, which is great. But this, from a shooting standpoint, is going to be very different. We're really going to be focusing on Pedro, which changes the way you shoot a lot and changes the way you can plan and storyboard. And I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, so it's going to be really exciting. We got to go.
Yeah. Bye. Till next time.
Hasta luego.